Hey everybody, Kevin here. I'm excited to bring you another episode of Founder Fridays. I am joined by. Do people still say pugilist? Like,
Yeah,
like is that
from
a
like 1850. Yeah, pugilist.
right? Yeah, I'm gonna have to work on my handlebar mustache, but yeah, former professional boxer, and not only were you a professional boxer, you were really good. Like, I went and looked up some stuff, man. Like, you were kind of giving people the business before
Yeah,
you started a business.
yeah. I like that. Yeah, I'm grateful, man. I had a really good long career. I had 22 fights. I finished 21 and one. I was won some belts that I have behind me. So I was, number three in the world when I retired, but finished, last 2 3 years of my career, top 10, top five in the world. So it was good. Had some big fights. Got to fight in Madison Square Garden, and my last fight at MGM Grand, Las Vegas, for a big world title. So it was a good run, and I'm just grateful not to get punched in the face for a living anymore. So
Yeah, well, I certainly don't blame you on that. There was once upon a time I read something that was like, it's like a professional goalie or whatever, like a hockey guy who said, can you imagine if like every time you did something wrong at work, a light went off and the entire place booed you? Like, there is something to be said for like the uniqueness of being a professional athlete and being in that situation. And I assume to a certain degree that like while you're in it, like in the moment, like it's also visceral and real, and you can't really focus outside of that. But I would imagine that like with a little bit of distance, does any part of you go like, well, this was kind of absurd that it happened, but cool.
yeah, for sure. And even though I only retired about 2.5 years ago, maybe coming up on three, it's like it feels like a different version of me, and it's pretty wild. Like I had these moments where I'm walking through the tunnels of Madison Square Garden or Cowboy Stadium, or big fights in Vegas, and there were surreal moments. Like I'd be lying if I said I felt comfortable. It felt like exciting, nervous, all the feelings, but surreal. Like I remember, now I was 23 years old when I fought on HBO undercard in Madison Square Garden, and it was like walking through those tunnels, being like, "Do I belong here? Like, what? This is crazy. I'm about to go risk my life in front of 20,000 people." It was definitely a surreal moment, and I had to really tap into like visualization and my mindset. What I saw as an athlete, which really translated to being an entrepreneur, which was cool, was I got to be around some of the best athletes in the world, not just in boxing. What I saw was what separated the good from the great was the mindset. Like there were so many top talented guys out there. Everybody was strong, fast, talented, but you could literally see the difference in the mindset of preparation. How do I get over a loss? How do I get over a bad round, a knockdown, a bad quarter? And that's really what separated guys like Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, and just top 10 in the world guys that I'd see versus other guys that had significant potential and talent, but just couldn't quite get there. So it was good. It was very wild and surreal, like you said, but taught me so many life lessons that I've kind of carried forward.
What kind of it sounds a little bit like the what was the old the Ted Lassoism, the be a goldfish idea, where you can just essentially like reset sooner than later. Sounds like there's some value in that for all of us.
Yeah, that's really, it's like be a goldfish, and then also Mike Tyson. Everyone has a plan to get punched in the face.
Right.
All that's
Yeah.
translated to running a business and just being an entrepreneur in general. But yeah, as much as you can do that, I think it's massively important.
Well, I want to unpack that, and we won't get sidetracked too much longer on your boxing career. But I do want to ask, like, do you come from a household of overachievers? Like, I was looking at what your sister does and what you've done, and I was like, you guys, you look normal when I see photos of you as children. But like, were you both always like sort of high energy and big plans and big dreams? And do you come from those sort of people?
Yeah, I'm really lucky to have some loving, encouraging parents that we were raised a little bit differently. I'll say, my dad, for instance, grew up inner city Chicago, didn't even graduate high school, and became an entrepreneur himself, and spent his whole life people telling him he's not good enough, he's not enough, was living out of his car. And, it wasn't until later on in life that he started to have success. But that type of ideology of just, don't be a victim, and you can be something great if you work hard enough, was instilled in us since day one. Like, I mean, I started boxing at 8 years old. And even, when I first started walking, it's like my dad had sports, footballs, basketballs in front of me, but it was like we had 5 a.m. practice, no matter what age, what time, what we were doing. And so achievement was definitely like pushed on us. And as I sit here now as a grown adult, I'm like, it's a blessing and a curse, because we did get to achieve a lot of stuff, but also at the same time, too, um, I learned now that achievement doesn't equal happiness. And ironically, when I got to world title, big title fights, I wasn't as happy as I thought I'd be. And so now this version of me post sports is just trying to find happiness and realizing that, like, achievement doesn't mean happiness. And so it's a blessing and a curse, if that makes sense.
Makes sense. And at the same time, while you were fighting, your sister's been, I mean, to call her an influencer feels like I'm doing that word a disservice. Like, she's bigger than that. Like, that footage of her roaming around on stage and talking about doing 4-hour sets, like that's, that's intense.
Yeah.
So, so you guys have complementary skill sets, it sounds like, but at the same time, like, aren't afraid of taking a big swing and putting yourself out there and trying to do something grand.
I'm really proud of her. She has developed a great community, and as you mentioned, she's put on these big events where she's had 2,000-3,000 women come see her speak, and it's part, online marketing, part personal development, part comedy. But that's exactly it. I think that we've both been willing to take big swings. I mean, listen, my last fight, I got knocked out and stopped in front of a million people on TV and thousands in the audience. The tweets I get are crazy. Like, people that love you, they hate you. Say what you want about me, but what you can never say is that I never that I didn't go for it. That I didn't give it 100%. And I'll die on my deathbed one day knowing that, whether it was fighting or the business or stepping on stage or whatever, like, I'm proud of that. I've made a ton of mistakes. I'm not perfect. I've gotten embarrassed. I've gotten punched and knocked down, literally and figuratively. But damn it, at the end of the day, like, I went for it, and I still am going for it. I'm not afraid to make mistakes, and that's something I am very proud of, and actually something I try to instill in my employees now is, like, I don't yell at employees that make mistakes. I encourage mistakes if the effort and the energy and optimism is there, because it's just all learning. So, but yeah, back to Angie, I'm super proud of her, and she's a huge reason that our company started to get so much organic push, and we have such a really cool, like, community that we've built with this brand.
So as a community nerd, I'm definitely going to want to talk about that more, but we'll just pivot for just a second, and I want to go back to how this got started. So you're fighting, you're in a lot of pain. Some of that probably has to do with rigorous training and just the nature of the sport, but also you were battling an autoimmune disorder that you weren't necessarily aware of. Was it prior to 2014? Is that timeline
Yeah,
about right?
that's pretty much spot on. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, which led to so many complications because my immune system started shutting down. So, it almost ended my career. I spent almost 2 years out, and then I ended up having 8 more fights and winning 7 of them moving forward. But life was never the same. I was on 8 medications at one point. Humira and methotrexate and painkillers, and I just kind of felt like number 9 wasn't the answer. And so it threw me into this world of, like, health and wellness, really, Kevin, of, like, okay, how can I start to change my body, change my mind? There's something bigger, there's something else going on. And so I started diving into different people's stories and getting hope out of learning about changing up my diet, breath work, meditation, CBD. And so slowly but surely, I started not only performing, but really finding a new avenue of life that I was passionate about. And it's now led this pain. I still deal with pain every day, like, without a doubt, whether it's concussions or the autoimmune issues or anything. And I'm so much better than I was before. But what that pain has given me is incredible empathy. Like, I want to make my mission to help people get out of pain for the rest of my life. Like, if I can do that, and I think we are doing that in a major way with the company and hopefully with speaking, like, then I'll feel like this pain had a purpose. Otherwise, pain without a purpose is just pure suffering. And so, whether it's like daily headaches or chronic inflammation or my immune system, I mean, there's still days I can barely get out of bed. I'm gonna be quite honest. However, they're rare and few, far in between what it used to be. And so for me, that's kind of my new mission, is helping people get out of pain. And I feel like Soul is just one vehicle that I've been able to do that.
I would think, oddly enough, like the fact that you do have to deal with regular pain issues is one of those things that's like you always, with getting into and understanding CBD in particular, you have a sort of pain baseline, if that makes any sense. So it's like you know that, like, absent a little bit of health, I expect to be in X amount of discomfort. And then when you see a lift there, like, how did you, was it part of the overall cocktail of things that you were experimenting with or trying or being prescribed or taking during that time to manage? And then how did you sort of separate that out from all the other stuff?
It's a great question. What I realized by diving into books by Dr. Joe Dispenza and Tony Robbins and understanding the mindset of placebo and nocebo and these scientifically proven effects of essentially how strong your mind is and how your mind will dictate what your body does. I knew that firsthand as an athlete, right? So now going into my health, I started to realize that, wow, when my fight or flight is incredibly high, when my sympathetic nervous system is firing at all cylinders, and I'm not in this rest and digest state, everything goes haywire. And that was the issue for me. I was having massive anxiety attacks, severe depression. My mental game was just off when it came to my body. And so when I started learning about, as I mentioned before, kind of like breath work and mindfulness and meditation and any type of tool that could get me from the sympathetic to parasympathetic, I started noticing a trickle down effect of, oh, wow, when I get into that parasympathetic state more often, my health gets better, my immune system gets better, my inflammation goes down. So CBD was a massive part of that for me, and it ended up becoming a big piece of the puzzle, not the puzzle, but a big piece of the puzzle. Because I think anytime someone comes on and tells you one thing solved it, they're either lying or they're selling you something. And for me, it was a multitude of things, and CBD and adaptogens, nootropics, just nutrition in general was a massive part of it for me. So I think anytime you can get people, as I mentioned, into that parasympathetic state where they can start to calm down, they can rest, digest, they can heal, they can sleep, it's massively important for your immune system and your inflammation. And so that's why CBD has been so incredible for me, because it has this like trickle down effect where it helps so many different areas and things if used properly and if used with the right amount and an efficacious amount rather. So that was kind of my journey into CBD. And the beauty was I started testing with non-THC versions, because for these big fights, we get drug tested. So that was really important when I started the company. I can't tell you how many companies and just the industry in general, it's very gray area, unfortunately, because it's not FDA regulated, right? So you have a lot of bad actors in it. You definitely have some good companies that are doing it right, but unfortunately, we are in the minority. So for us, we're a family brand. My mom is the head of customer service. My sister and I started the company. Safety and efficacy and quality was incredibly important for me. So we do double third-party lab testing, which we go above and beyond and spend more money than we need to make sure that there's no heavy metals, there's no pesticides, and the amount of CBD and other ingredients that in there are actually in there. And so I'm super proud of that. And selfishly, my body was my asset when I first started the company. So if I tested positive on a drug test or had any type of chemicals in there, it has really big implications for me as an athlete previously. So that's kind of the birth of the company, and really like the ethos of the company is that no matter what, like you can trust the safety and efficacy of this, because I'm someone that really needed that in my life at the time and still do.
Makes sense. So I think I know the answer to this. Who approached who? Like who pitched who on you guys spinning up a company together?
Well, this was the second company we spun up. The first one I invested in, and we just it tanked. It was actually a healthy meal delivery service company. Lost money, learned a ton, like got our MBA through failing in a couple business ventures. But it was really me that came to her with the idea of CBD. Angie is very anti prescription medication, anti even like drugs. She's a very kind of like straight laced person. So for me, as I mentioned, like I was on painkillers, I was just all in on that, and I knew I had to get out. So when I first brought her the idea of CBD initially, like everybody else, she was like, "What is this? Is it going to get me high?" Like, and I was like, "Angie, no, trust me," because she was dealing with a lot of anxiety issues as well, and so it was kind of like that's how it started, and then she just had a million ideas, which she's the best at. And it's my job to be like, okay, that one works. That one costs way too much money. That one's insane. Like she's such a huge dreamer. It's like a perfect kind of a partnership that we have that I unfortunately kind of talk her down and she just dreams like crazy, but we need that. So,
Yeah, it seems like you guys have some yin and yang
yeah.
happening. Totally makes sense. So that's really interesting. So you get started, and then how far in advance, or when in relation to the pandemic, do you guys when when are things really rolling for you? And then I would assume that the pandemic had some impact on your growth arc. But can you talk through a little bit of that?
Yeah, of course. It really did. I mean, like everybody else, the beginning of the pandemic was scary in terms of from business side with supply chain and just wondering, what's going to happen across the board. However, like a lot of commerce and supplement companies, we had a ton of growth eventually during the pandemic. We are primarily direct to consumer. I think that was massive for us. And really, our pain points are anxiety, sleep, and pain. And when you think about what people were going through and are going through, it's those pain points really. And so for us, it was kind of a perfect timing. And we were so grateful to be in a position at that point, about almost 2 years in, a little bit less, that the wheels were turning and we had this system and the cogs in place to really fulfill all the orders essentially. And so 2020 and 2021 and even this year have been massive growth for us. We're at about 40% growth year over year this year. And it's just been really exciting. We're continuing to hire more. And so, especially in a place right now to where you're seeing a ton of layoffs and a ton of people being scared, for us, we've seen nothing but growth. And I really think that points to our community, which I'm sure we'll dive into, but really our pain point. We're offering a product that's helping people with very important issues. And so I think that if you have issues with sleep or pain or anxiety, nothing else in life is really like achievable. It's like I've been there firsthand to where if you're having full on anxiety attacks or you can't sleep, like everything else is so daunting. So I think I'm I'm very proud that we have a company and a mission and an ethos that helps serve people's health. Because what I've found as a young man, when your health is taken from you, is that health is everything. And if you don't focus on it right now, you're going to regret it later on in life. So, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Totally true. That's really interesting. So you get started. Obviously, now you guys run a variety of different product lines. Like, can you talk about some of the different offerings? And then in general, I'd also be interested in unpacking, like, who's your average consumer? Are we talking about, you know, folks in suburbia who are dealing with some of these anxiety issues, or are there particular audiences that you have found that have been early adopters for your CBD products?
Yeah, I think in a large part because of Angie and her community and audience, we started in that, let's call it 25 to 40 female range, and we skew that way pretty heavily, about 75 to 80% female, let's call it 20% male. And we're seeing that skew more towards female, because even, the women that we find, they're buying for their husbands as well. And so whether that's because of Angie or a little bit of our branding and messaging, it just kind of is what it is. And we've definitely leaned into that. But having said that, we have a wide variety of products. We have gummies, we have tinctures, we have capsules that are all doctor formulated. And as I mentioned before, we have a bunch of different ingredients, including CBD. So where we're taking the company is we're really becoming more of a wellness brand. And in fact, this year we launched our first products, a gut product, a thyroid product, and a hormone product, all capsules, with a really well-known doctor named Dr. Jessica Petras, that had no CBD in it. So for us, we're going to start to launch more products that don't have cannabinoids in it. Because the way I see the company is moving towards is we want to address pain points. If certain cannabinoids fit into that, beautiful, let's run with it. But if it's not quite necessary, then let's, look at all the other options. So we've got lion's mane and reishi and cordyceps and different nootropics. And so it's really cool that we've been able to add these other, powerhouse proven, clinically proven ingredients with CBD as well. And so whether it's the gummies, the tinctures, the drops, the capsules, we have topicals, we even have pet treats behind me. It's wild. CBD affects the
Yeah.
endocannabinoid system, and all mammals have an endocannabinoid system. So it's crazy how much CBD works to help with dogs and cats, just as well, in terms of like relief. I have a dog who's 15 years old, and he could barely even go on a normal walk. Kevin, I'm telling you, it was wild. We started giving him CBD.
Yeah.
He can now do 2-mile walks. I kid you not. Like, we can get my mom on here
Oh, wow.
about it. CBD has been transformational for him, and we've heard that so often with people with their dogs. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
There's so many dogs too that are, we don't have to sidebar on this, but it's like there's so many dogs too that are basically like puppies for 12 years and then old dogs for the rest of the time. And so it's like once they sort of cross that threshold into not being able to get around as well, and they can't tell you, you can just figure it out because you are paying attention.
Mm.
Being able to help them feels like, I mean, they're extended members of the family. So
Yeah.
um, one thing I wanted to ask you about. We talked a little bit about the pandemic stuff, but I also remember, and I don't, my timelines on this. You're gonna have a better idea on the timelines of this, and this is really kind of the gist of the question than I will. Um, there was also this sort of surge of the the mainstreaming of the CB, like the CBD movement, and so some of that overlapped. Like there's a Venn diagram, a weird Venn diagram out there, I'm sure somewhere, with like pandemic times and the rise of the CBD movement. It's not the same, but there was some overlap there. So like from your perspective, was CBD becoming mainstreamed before we were all on lockdown, or did that just sort of spotlight the fact that, okay, I've got all this time to work on myself, I want to feel better and focus more?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. In 2018, a farm bill was passed that legalized hemp, and I think that was massive for CBD. CBD is a cannabinoid that can be derived from either the hemp plant, which is very high in CBD and low in THC, or marijuana, which is traditionally, pot, people call it. It's very high in THC, psychoactive, the psychoactive compound, and much lower in CBD. So when hemp became legal in 2018, pre-pandemic, I think that really moved things forwards, and you saw a lot of first movers in the space, ourselves included. We started at the end of 2018, that really kind of took advantage of that. And then you're right. I mean, people started realizing how important your underlying health was, during the pandemic. Most people that passed away had an average of 3.5 comorbidities, I think. So from that, no matter how you feel about the issue, is like, we need to get healthier. I think everybody can agree to that, like especially Americans. The
Right.
obesity rate and the health rate is insane in this country. So from that, we kind of, tide lifts all ships. And I think that the CBD industry in general benefited, and we benefited from people starting to be a little more health conscious, which I applaud. I think that whether it's what we're drinking and eating in this country, it's really scary what we're putting in our bodies, and most unknowingly. So for us, it's really about education. It's like, how can we become a wellness and education platform, to help people live healthier lives. I mean, totally even outside of CBD. So that's something we want to keep pushing forward.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've danced around it a little bit. I have to ask you about your community. I'm a nerd for this kind of stuff. So obviously, it sounds like, cultivating those conversations and really leaning into being able to listen to your crowd and to make them help them feel like they're connected to you guys and that you're in this journey together is important. It sounds like I'm reading between the lines here, but did that start to happen organically, or was that something that you guys really intentionally focused on?
We intentionally focused on it. In fact, I have old notebooks from when we first started the company. It's funny you say that. I was just looking back at it, and I remember writing community first, brand second. And that was something that Angie and I always wanted to talk about. And I know, that's not a novel saying or term, but we really do believe in that community first, brand second. We've done everything we've done, whether it's product ideation, customer service, all these different areas of the business. We've thought, what does our community want? How in copy, advertising copy, how do we speak to that customer and individualizing it, right? So not making it about ego. Yes, the company really is. Angie and me started it. We're brother and sister. It's a great founder story, but it's not about us. It's about how we can help you. And so, whether it's like we have a taste tester squad, for instance. We pride ourselves on flavors and coming out with new flavors with our gummies and tinctures. So we have a small group of affiliates that we spend, money for all these R&D gummies and tinctures that they get to test out. So we get a bunch of feedback that way. Obviously, social media with Angie and myself, we're always in the DMs, always answering people. So for us, it was kind of like an affiliate program, which I know a lot of companies do, but we really cultivate that affiliate program and try to give people a really good experience. So I think that brands that are not thinking about community now are really at a disadvantage, because in what we're seeing right now is people are starting to gravitate away from Procter and Gamble, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, these big brands, because unfortunately they don't trust them. We see, quite frankly, the crap that they put in all this stuff that they're feeding everyday Americans. So who customers are starting to trust more are smaller businesses, or at least brands that have transparency. And when you build community through that, you can really do that in a cool, proper way. And so that's kind of the audience member that we're speaking to. And I just don't think these big brands can build community or at least a tight knit community and a loyal community like smaller ones can.
It's hard to fake, for sure. Like, you can't, you can hum a few bars and try to prop something up that is for lack of a better term, a little half-assed, and it's like your community will sniff that out. And so being available to have those conversations where or at least be a sounding board or listen to your public is such a important deal. So that's really cool. What to that end, like, what are you guys hearing back from the multitudes?
Yeah, I mean, a lot. First of all, one thing we're really hearing back is sleep. So we're constantly polling our audience in terms of what's a new product you'd like to see us put through R&D and come out with. What's a new flavor, this and that. And we're noticing and realizing that sleep is a massive category. And so for us, our Sleepy Gummy is our number one selling SKU by far. It's our best performer. And we have different flavors of it, but it has CBD, CBN, melatonin, myrcene, a bunch of incredible ingredients to help with sleep. But we're realizing how many people are struggling with sleep. And so for us, it's like, what other products, delivery mechanisms, ways can we help people sleep? And so whether we offer like, breathing exercises, or we've done a bunch of webinars and Instagram lives with sleep experts that talk about how to help with your circadian rhythm and what temperature should I sleep at, all that kind of stuff. So our audience is desperate for better sleep, really. That's one of the main things that's kind of jumped out for us.
It's such a huge deal. It's like if it's another one of those things, sort of a pain baseline, right? Like, so if you don't sleep well and you get one good night's sleep, it's like, I feel like I could do 3 times the things that I tried to do yesterday. It's really remarkable. So kudos to you guys. I guess a couple of additional thoughts. So one would be, and you touched on this a little while earlier, in terms of where you're going. I would love to unpack that a little bit and talk more about what's next for you guys. And then, well, why don't we start there? Yeah,
Yeah.
can
Well,
we share a little bit more?
yeah, so what I'm really excited about is what's next for us. Is I was talking about education and just becoming kind of a wellness authority in the space. My sister Angie and I just launched a podcast called the Best Medicine Podcast, and we're
Oh,
interviewing
nice.
some of the top health and wellness experts in the world, doctors. We've got some NFL Super Bowl professional athletes, some entrepreneurs, but it's really going to be health and wellness focused. We have like a hydration expert, we have a sleep expert, we have an expert on nutrition and blood sugar regulation. And so for us, it's a way to kind of cultivate more of this wellness experience and education, and also, it's a funnel into the company too, in a sense, in terms of, hey, here's some natural products that can kind of help you. But so I'm really excited about that. But in terms of the company as well, as I alluded to earlier, we're really moving more towards a wellness company. We see ourselves as a anxiety, sleep, pain, and even focus company that happens to have CBD and other cannabinoids in it. So for us, it's expanding our wellness line and really, as we talked about earlier, listening to our customers and seeing what they want, what they don't want, and just learning along the way.
So this is not really a nuts and bolts marketing podcast, so to speak, but I am curious. Like you guys, when you started, you both had strong personal brands, so I'm sure that was part of it. But when you're putting together your marketing mix from the get go, and you're trying to figure out how to get the word out there and define specifically an audience that your message lands with, what did you guys do? How'd you get the word out?
It's a great question. The first year and a half of the business, we didn't spend a dime on paid ads. Um,
Amazing.
yeah, I'm so grateful for that. And I think that really speaks to, once again, community. We came out the gate with phenomenal organic push in community and affiliates. So that was super important for us. We found loyal people, and we weren't concerned if they were Kim Kardashian or Katy Perry and had, 100 million followers. We were more concerned about grassroots word of mouth affiliates and influencers. People call them micro influencers, whatever you want to say. But most importantly, loyal fans and customers that then spread it to their community. And so for us, that was massively important, changed the game for us, and really kind of took us in a different direction. And then once again, the marketing, now that we are, expanding and spending on ads, our marketing is really revolved around speaking directly to the customer. What you will benefit from, how you will feel when you take this, and education, like I said. So I'm super proud of our team. We ended up bringing on some incredible marketers. And like I said, we make mistakes like everybody else, but we're just kind of like learning along the way, collecting all the data, and it's been fun.
Amazing. Well, uh, I have had the good fortune to meet you a couple of times in person when you've been back and forth here in Austin. We're big fans of you guys. We wish you nothing but success. I hope it goes great. Tell people where they can find you and if they've got questions or if they want to learn more about your products, where they can dig you guys up.
Thank you, Gavin. Well, I appreciate that, and we feel the same way. We've loved working with Triple Whale. It's actually made us allowed us to make some really cool decisions and
Awesome.
marketing. We talked about marketing earlier. It's allowed us to give us an amazing dashboard that like I never had, to be honest. So anyway, I can go on about that, but the feeling is mutual. But yeah, they can find us at My Soul CBD. That's our Instagram and our social handles. We're mysoulcbd.com is the website. Our company is Soul CBD, but had to tack the my in front of there. And I'm at official Mike Lee on Instagram. If anybody wants to chat, happy to reach out to anybody dealing with health issues, autoimmune issues, have any questions. And yeah, the Best Medicine Podcast. It's on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, all the platforms. We've got 3 episodes down right now, and we're launching a new one every single week. So go check out The Best Medicine. And yeah, that's about it.
Amazing. Well, I wish you guys a super fruitful Q4. I hope it goes great. I would also imagine that leaning into Q1 when we're all really focusing on our health and trying to undo all the turkey and stuffing and holiday parties, that
Mhm.
January has a tendency to probably be a nice time for you guys. But regardless, thank you for spending some time with us today, and super jazzed to learn a little bit more about what you guys been working on and how you got here.
I love it. Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it.
All right, cool.